Well, just back from the game, just back from Burnley. 1:30 in the morning here, so bit of a long trip. Wouldn't necessarily say it was worth it, but it wasn't a great game of football in truth. But we got a point, which is probably not a bad result away from home, given the injuries that we've got. Great to see Kuna back today. A couple of nice touches when he come on. Wasn't really long enough on the pitch to really dictate the play, but looked okay when he came in, as you would expect with a player of his quality, and just good to have him back. Ain't Nori played well today. Obviously got the goal, having won the free kick in the first place. Playing higher up the pitch alongside the young lad up front and Sarabia on the other side, which was okay. Just not a bit of a lack of attacking threat really, which I think that's the same after the Villa game. So, but no real surprises with the players that are out there. The thing that does surprise me is the frailties in defence, which I just don't understand. We're only missing Dawson at the back. He dropped Bueno today, and Semedo was almost playing as a centre half, come right back, come right wing back. Wasn't really sure where he was playing, but only Dawson out, and the defence just looks terrible. The amount of men that are just always free in and around the box, with just no one picking them up, and you watch the replays and it's not even good movement. It's just players stood there and no one marking them, and that really was kind of summed up with the first goal. Their player did make a run into the box, but you've got Totti marking a man at the front post, Semedo marking a man at the far post, and Kilman just stood in the middle marking absolutely nobody. I'm no expert by any stretch, but logic would say that Kilman should pick up the man that Semedo's on, leaving Semedo free to pick up the man behind him, but just lack of communication, lack of any guidance and leadership in that back line really, with Dawson out. And I think it just shows probably how pivotal he is to that back line, which I didn't think he was, but it appears to be that is the case. Hwang and Dawson hopefully back for Forest, if not West Ham. I think that'll make a big difference, give us a bit of a focal point up front as well with Hwang back, and I think since he's been out we've realised how much we've missed him really. But yeah, I say not a great game of football, poor defensively, not much going forward. Not really too much more to say about it really, but yeah, bring on next Saturday.
So, all square last night at Turf Moor. 1-1 for Wolves. In the end, a decent point away from home. Gary O'Neill's team selection, obviously an interesting point, naming 4 fullbacks on the pitch. We all know the squad that he's got, the selection he's got, he's pretty limited. And I think we could see that last night. I think you could tell that in the performance. You're relying on a lot of young players, especially up front. I thought Semedo looked good in the first half and in the second, going forward. But obviously we had our chances. You don't put those chances away, and then Larson opens a scoring. A bad goal to give away, I think. 3 in the box. I think you've got to look at Doc and Semedo as a pair. Communication needs to be better. Someone's just got to pick the man up. I think Kilman done his job. He had his man. So I think you've got to look at Doc and Semedo there. I mean, you've got the brilliance of Aït-Nouri to bring you back into the game. Brilliant cross from Sarabia. Obviously, the free kick comes from Aït-Nouri's tricks and skills anyway, so he's having a brilliant season, and you've got to hope that Wolves can keep hold of him in the summer and keep him injury free as well. Wolves have had enough injuries this season that have already impacted the season. Matheus Cunha coming back in the second half. It'd be good to see him against West Ham. I think he's going to be a big boost. You've got players like Chouameni who look lively but are just struggling to get a bit in there. I thought Chouameni looked good. He looked better than he played against Villa. I thought he had made some decent, intelligent runs. Just sometimes didn't get the passes, which isn't his fault. But in the end, a good point away for Wolves. But winless in 3. So I think we've got to look at Saturday's game against West Ham. I think that's got to be a must-win, especially if Wolves want to sneak into Europe this season. Then you've really got to be winning these types of games. Lamina coming close as well in the second half with a header. On another day that goes in and Wolves win 2-1, and you know you're looking forward to going up the table again. So there's a lot of positives to take. There's a lot of negatives, and then you've got Gary O'Neill having a little dig at the owners about the size of the squad. Now, we all know as Wolves fans there's a history of that with Lopetegui, Nuno, etc. So I think he needs backing, and I think it's urgent. We definitely need backing. He needs his players. But we move on to West Ham, so let's see what O'Neill can do there. Cheers, guys.
Felt like that was a chance missed today. I think with the kind of excitement of Cunha being back on the bench and an opportunity to kind of bounce back after a couple of really kind of drab performances against a poor Burnley side. Admittedly, they've been better in recent weeks, but still only one win at home all season. You'd think the Wolves would take advantage of that despite, the threadbare squad or threadbare attack that we have. But we didn't. I think it was another lacklustre performance overall. Looked good in parts, in possession, but I think there were too many poor individual performances today to string any decent patterns of play together. I thought Lamina, for his extremely high standards, was woeful. Good to see him back in the midfield, but he could not, complete a pass for the life of him. He was trying to force the issue and play balls around the edge and play balls around the corner. But unfortunately, he didn't have anyone to aim at because Chiwomi just couldn't really get into the game once again, demonstrating our absolute need for a striker and reinforcement that never happened. But yeah, I thought he was really poor. Gomez was poor. I thought Doherty was poor. I thought Semedo looked shaky in parts, but I thought he was really good aside from a couple of, dodgy clearances and a couple of misplaced passes. Kilman looked poor. Totti looked shaky. Bueno was awful. Hugo, that is. I thought Santi was all right when he came on. But yeah, it's just not enough decent performances all round to really drag a result out of that. Tuesday night in Burnley, I mean, there's no excuses in the Premier League, but you could tell they just weren't really up for it, still a bit tired. 1 point at Burnley isn't amazing, but if we if we beat West Ham on Saturday, 4 points from the last two games isn't awful despite the injuries. Jose Sarr, have to give a shout out to him for as much as he can be shocking with the ball at his feet. He keeps us in games. I think he let the defence off multiple times. Let them off multiple times with some great saves. I think Burnley probably deserved to win, to be honest. Ait-Nouri should have taken his second chance. But aside from that, we didn't really test Ulic, the goalkeeper, much. And we got what we deserved, I think, really. It's a better point for us than it is for Burnley in their survival hopes. But hopefully we build on the point. A point's better than none. And we get a result at West Ham. Well, at West Ham, at Molineux, rather. So I'll see you, hopefully, on Saturday.
It's a very disappointing result and performance at that. I think Burnley had control, and I'd probably say they deserved to win in comparison of how the two teams played. We created some good moments that didn't really seem to turn into chances. I think it was just those half moments that we couldn't really find that killer pass or that final ball to really affect Burnley. So yeah, it's really disappointing on that front. I think it's good to see Cunha back. You could clearly see that he wasn't as sharp as he usually is, but that's understandable. He's way ahead of schedule, and I think the worst case scenario yesterday is seeing Cunha go down with another injury, because he's exactly what we need at the moment. So yeah, it's kind of a positive that he's back. The only positive, I say kind of a positive, it is a major positive. It's the only positive we have from yesterday. I think Boubacar Traoré's cameo wasn't as good. He's a defensive midfielder, and we can't expect him to attack as well as we would like him to. But I think that moment where Ait-Nouri slot him in and the ball got caught underneath his feet, that's very disappointing for a Premier League football player who's getting paid his wages. So yeah, you can't put the blame on him because he's not been brought in to be this attacking threat. But yeah, I think when you lose 4 of your 5 senior attackers, this is what you can expect, really. Obviously, Ait-Nouri had a very good game yesterday as well. I think that's 3 goals in 4 for him now. I think the last goal we scored that wasn't a left-back was Mario Lemina against Brighton in the FA Cup. And a lot's happened since then. So, yeah, that kind of shows the situation that we're in at the moment. I think one of the most worrying signs is Gary O'Neill's comments post-match about how the board he made it clear with the board that they needed signings, as the Finn squad would catch up to them later on in the season. And when you have a Premier League level number 9, in his words, ready to come in, and again in his words that the board didn't want to pay a small amount of fee to get him in, and this can either go one or two ways. There's a bike ruining this video, very sorry. This can go either one or two ways. It's either the board get their arse into gear and put some more money into the club, or Gary O'Neill is going to get pushed out. And I think when he's getting links with teams like West Ham, who could probably give him more money than he has now, then obviously his head will be turned. It's very disappointing to see these comments, because we've seen it with Nuno, Lopetegui and Bruno Lage at the ends of their spells at the club. So hopefully this doesn't follow suit. But yeah, moving onwards, hopefully we win on Saturday. I think the Molyneux crowd will play a huge part in the result. Hopefully Cunha gets a couple more minutes. And yeah, let's hope for the best.
Right then, Wolves fans. Wolves versus Burnley finishing off 1-1. I thought it was a pretty drab game to watch, to be honest. There were parts in the game where we looked okay, especially on the ball. We looked like, you know, we were going forward well with the ball. The issue is, I think the main problem there is obviously Chiwome up front looking absolutely lost up there by himself, which is no fault of his own. He is an academy kid that is still trying to climb up the ranks essentially, and it's not his fault he's been put in that position. I think firstly as well, Jose Sarr had an absolutely brilliant game. You know, he's kept us in it in some of the last few games that we've played. Some of the saves he's been making. You know, there were plenty of chances yesterday where we could have capitulated and ultimately lost the game, which would have been obviously pretty poor, losing to Burnley. I think Ryan Ait-Nouri had a good game, a very good game. Obviously going forward, there's still that lack of end product in the final third. I think, you know, the shot against at Villa where he missed and hit it straight at the keeper did pretty much the exact same thing again against Burnley, and I think, you know, if he can sort that out, that would be pretty much the ultimate part that he needs to finish off his game. At the end of the day, I think it was just a poor performance. Lamina looked slow, and I haven't said that for pretty much a single game really this season. I'd probably ultimately say it was one of his worst performances for the team so far this season. And again, I think, you know, the issue with Chiwome and the academy kids going forward, again, it's not their fault, but I think that's ultimately down to Fosun with the lack of investment that's been put into the club. And obviously Gary O'Neill coming out in his press conference after the game, essentially saying that is a big problem. So that's something we really do need to sort out going forward. But thank you very much for having me on, guys, and I'll see you later.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Scott. I'm going to do a little bit of reaction from yesterday's game. Burnley 1, Wolves 1. It's hard at the moment, isn't it? It's hard. I want to go through the team really, and I'll start with Gary and his decision to change it up. So having watched the game against Villa on Saturday, I thought we were crying out for Ait-Nouri to be further forward. Obviously, defensively, I wouldn't say it's his biggest strength. He's good at it, but clearly going forward now, 3 goals in 4 games, get him on the left-hand side, which he did. Bring in Doc. When I saw the lineup, first of all, I thought it would be Doc on the inside of the 3, keeping Nelson out on the right, which eventually, once he made the change to bring Hugo Bueno off and put Doc out onto the left and then put Semedo onto the right, maybe he thought he could play the inside fullback, he pushes forward kind of Pep style for Semedo, but that wasn't his position. He doesn't play there, and it was ultimately for me in fault. He was in fault for the goal. So yeah, Gary kind of did what I wanted him to do, but then not quite as I would have done it. I would have had Doc as the third centre back, whether that be on the left, because he can play on the left, or the right. and left Nelson where he was. I still thought Nelson had a great game apart from the goal. Let's go through the team. Jose Sarr, again, for his faults, I reckon maybe he's cost us, say, half a dozen goals this season, but I reckon he saved us at least 30. So can't fault him again for some of the saves that he made. Really good saves. I actually thought he was pretty soft for the Diaby goal on Saturday. Kind of was like dived under the ball. I don't think the Diaby goal was as good as everybody was saying. He just hit it early. I think that took Kilman and Sarr by surprise. But anyway, we're not talking about that game. But yeah, Jose, good game. Spoke about Nelson already. Kilman, I don't know about Kilman. Half the time I think he's fantastic. Other times I think he's a bit, I don't know, 70%. I mean, it's hard to say. But anyway, I need to wrap this up because I've already done 2.5 minutes. Game itself, you could tell that Burnley needed it more than we did. Even though we want to push for Europe, whatever. They've completely lives depended on it. And for I say most of the game, you could tell that. And we always struggle against them. They've gone more direct now, long ball. But then they have some tricky players as well. Tough place to go on a Tuesday night. Take the point. Move on. Luckily, West Ham and Newcastle both dropped points too, so it didn't really make much difference as long as the Chelsea games, the Brighton game and all the kind of results go our way, then nothing's really changed. Cunha back, good to see. You could tell he wasn't fit though, like even maybe 60%. A few times where earlier in the season you'd see him closing down, even though he only played for 15-20 minutes, he didn't do that. But, that's fair enough. West Ham on Saturday, another kind of half bogey team that we kind of struggle against. Top 10 at the start of the season, everyone would have bitten your hand off for that, me included. Anyway, need to wrap it up. So, yeah, Gary with a slight dig towards the board. We've had this problem for quite a long time, but then we've been managing the financial aspects of it. So would we have rather gone down the route of Everton, Leicester now, Forest, and been docked points, or literally tried to stay in the way we stayed and hoped our managers could bring us through it, which is kind of what's been happening, and it's kind of worked. So you can say what you want about Fossen, but I feel like the good outweighs the bad. Anyway, Burnley won, Wolves won. Take it off. We didn't get beat by Burnley. Move on to Saturday.
Wolves won, Burnley won. Frustrating at times. Certainly the first 20 minutes we couldn't get our foot in the game at all. It was all Burnley. But I think given the circumstances with our injuries, with Burnley's form at the minute, I think we take the point. I think overall Burnley were the better team over the 90. They seemed to be more willing, wanting to get forward, attack the ball. They had some really nice play down the right-hand side, which we struggled with at times. I think defensively we've been poor the last few games. I think Dawson had a couple of poor games before he was injured, but I think having him back in the side will be crucial for the last few games of the season. I think he organises the back. His communication's far better. He's got that physical presence that Kilman and Bueno really lack. When teams are attacking us constantly and we're sitting at the back and we've got balls firing in, Dawson will always win that header and just really command that back line. So I think it'll be good once he's back. I think we started with 4 fullbacks. So Bueno, Doc, Aitnuri and Semedo, which I think Gary doesn't have much choice at the minute. So, I was kind of fine with that formation. I didn't know if he was going to play Troy Boubacar in the middle, potentially, to kind of, just have that defensive mindset and push Gomez and Lamina a bit more forward. I think those two struggled a little bit. They weren't at their best. I think they struggled to drive forward at times and they were a bit sloppy in possession. But at the same time, Burnley were very good at getting behind the ball as soon as they lost it. And that made it very difficult for Wolves to create kind of little pockets of space to move forward. I think Aitnuri was really the only one that managed to do that. He was excellent, driving the ball forward, his little bits of trickery, won us a few free kicks, and we had that bit of trickery, which again, I think it was a little bit soft. The referee gave the free kick outside the box. Sarabia delivered in, and Aitner was just not being marked whatsoever and was able to glance a nice header into the corner of the net. So yeah, a nice finish from him, and I think that's 3 in 4 games now for Aitner, which is good. Although he did miss that one-on-one chance, which I think if he'd been playing in that attacking position the last couple of years, probably would have had a bit more of a clinical finish on him to get it past the keeper. Although the keeper did make himself quite big. So yeah, I think that'll come with time. Semedo again was quite good at getting up and down those flanks and driving the ball forward. Again, we haven't got many options, and Doc a few times I think offered something. In all honesty, probably more than Sarabia. I think at the minute, I honestly think he's pointless being in the squad. I know he's a very talented player, but unfortunately with the lack of pace and willingness to drive with the ball, and the lack of willingness to even pass to Chioma and the youngsters who, again, Chioma, I don't think he had a bad performance. I think he offers more than Fraser. I think he's a little bit quicker and a bit more willing to get after the ball and win that ball back for our team. I think he won a couple of headers and held the ball up once or twice, but again, he's making some really smart runs, and Sarabia is just not willing to pass him the ball. Whether that's a trust issue because he's young, I don't know. But yeah, Sarabia needs to play those balls through, because currently we're not creating many chances. So, anything will be better than nothing. So yeah, I think at the back, as I said before, we're a bit disorganised. Semedo for their goal was in no man's land. I had no idea that there was a man behind him, and really should have done better. I think that was a poor goal to concede. But yeah, overall, I think we take the point, we go from there, and hopefully once Cunha's back fit, we have a bit more attacking presence. I thought he made a real impact when he came on, and yeah, fingers crossed when he's back to 100% and match fit and sharpness ready, we can start scoring some more goals in the back of the net. I think Gary could have made his subs a little bit earlier. I felt like he was, I guess, not going for the win. He brought Cunha on and then he brought Boubacar on and changed the formation slightly, but throughout the game we were sitting back in a 5 in defence with Doc sort of sitting next to Semedo, and yeah, I felt like I get that we've had a poor run of games and Burnley's been on form recently, but the quality in our squad, we should be doing better and we should be trying to win that game. And I get Burnley were on the front foot, but still, it's a little bit more willingness to get forward, I think, and desire to go on to win the game rather than sit and defend and get the draw. So fingers crossed for the next game.